One.
Well, good morning, folks. Today is Thursday, May 6th, and it's our Ag Committee meeting. We'll be meeting until from 9 to 9:45, or if we get done our work sooner. One of the things that I guess we need to do this morning is review S-102. And we do have Michael O'Grady with us, legislative council person. And Michael, would you want to run through those changes, please?
Sure. So I sent over a side-by-side of the Senate passed version and the House proposal this morning. I'll warn everyone that it's on legal letter format. So if you try to print it out, it might not print out on your normal printer. And I did that because both bills, both the Senate passed and the House proposal were over 50 pages long. So just generally, in the first part, remember this bill has basically three major parts. The first part is the definition of farming for the importation of food residuals for composting. Second part is the regulation and registration of animal health products, feed supplements. And the third part was the regulation and registration of biostimulants and plant amendments and soil amendments. The first part had one minor change to the rulemaking provision. The second part changed the definition of animal health product to dosage form animal health product, and then revised that term for consistency with some federal regs and rules, and then made conforming changes throughout that chapter. And in the third part, similar change was made to the definition of biostimulant. It was changed to plant biostimulant. There's a slight tweak to the definition, and then conforming changes were made throughout that part, changing biostimulant to plant biostimulant. So there may look like there's a lot of yellow in this, but there's actually not that many changes.
Yep.
The other main change is the fee for dosage form animal health products. When the Senate passed it out, it was $105 per product, just as it would be for the feed supplements and commercial feed. But the advocates for those products made the case that there were many more products than were originally estimated. And therefore, in order to raise the revenue that the agency was proposing, that the per product fee could be reduced. And it was the House committee reduced it to 50, and then House Ways and Means reduced it to 35.
And that is projected to raise
the same amount of revenue. Yep. Same amount of revenue as was estimated in the Senate.
Well, that was a good catch.
Michael, how does we're not the first state by a long shot to put fees on this. How do we compare to other states' fees if we make it $35?
I heard this testimony. I'm trying to recall. I think it's basically we're not at the high end. We're kind of in the high medium, I would say. So kind of right in the middle.
And do other states distinguish fees for these products versus the other products that we had originally, put them on a parallel with?
I will have to confirm that, but because I've looked at commercial feed fees in the past, I know that Vermont is at the higher end of some of the feed, but not the highest. So I would suspect that other states do make that distinction, but I will have to confirm that.
Other questions about the changes from Michael?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah,
I have a couple of questions.
go ahead, Anthony.
I'm wondering, I mean, I have a basic question about what a dosage form animal health product is. I mean, because it says that it doesn't provide nutritional benefit, doesn't require prescription, isn't intended for cosmetic purposes, et cetera, et cetera. Could you just give me an example of what we're talking about here? I just can't imagine what
So-
it is.
Glucosamine.
Okay,
It's not a drug. It's not there for your nutrition value. It has some purported health benefit,
sure.
but that's not necessarily proven. And it
Sure.
comes in a dosage form, in like a milligram form or tablet form. That's a prime example.
Okay, now that's helpful. The other thing
Just
which
my
you didn't
dog.
mention, I'm sorry.
I was saying I would give it to my dog.
Right, no, we've given it to animals too. I just couldn't remember, like, couldn't imagine what it is we're talking about. Somewhere in here, it says that the secretary will determine whether something is a feed supplement or dosage form. That's a change, isn't it? That it gives the secretary power to decide which is which.
Yeah, because of the feed distinction, you can imagine that some manufacturers are going to say, no, I'm a dosage form animal health product, not a feed supplement. And so there has to be an entity that makes that determination. And so that authority was given to the secretary.
Okay,
And,
that's all I had. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, I noticed they also struck the penalties, section 333, and also near the end of the bill, I gotta find it again. They added under golf courses, a new section that we didn't have. Are those substantive changes, would you say?
No, the penalties, because there was no change in the penalties, I just skipped over it in the drafting. I was trying to just save a page or two
Okay,
in printing. And then the House clerk found a cross-reference mistake. And to fix it, I actually had to fix the cross-reference in a couple of other sections. And that's what you see, those new sections 10A, 10B, and 10C are on the last page.
okay. So I think procedurally, Anthony, you'll probably have to indicate that we concurred with the proposal of amendment, if indeed we do, which I guess we do.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Chris's part is where all the changes were made. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
too
okay,
much.
I thought this was your bill. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
We divided it.
We divided it.
I got you.
But Mr. Chair, I have a question for you because the real substantive changes have to do with the fees. So should I call Senator Cummings and just make sure she won't mind us doing this now? Because we're going to potentially do this in 50 minutes before finance meets and discusses this.
well, as long, I guess, you know, she shouldn't have a problem, but it'd be nice to inform her if the revenues are gonna, with new calculations and new numbers, and the revenues are gonna end out being the same, which should cover all the cost. It would be good to probably give her a phone call and just alert her that there were some changes, but the fees went down.
Yeah.
But it's gonna generate the same dollars.
Okay, well, I will do that, and I'll assume we're still going to be able to move it today unless I will alert you all if that's not the case. Okay?
Yeah, I think, you know, our chicken bill, I mean, that's all stayed pretty much the same, right, Michael? Yeah,
There is one change, and I wanted to note it. It's in the rulemaking, and it's in one of the rulemaking subdivisions that Senate Natural added. And Senate Natural had wanted the rules to prohibit a farm from initiating the production of compost within the designated area unless a municipality had expressly approved. But the agency wanted it to say prohibited from initiating production of compost from food residuals or food processing residuals imported onto the farm. Farms do a lot of composting that doesn't involve the importation of food residuals, whether it's their animal mortalities or whether or not it's manure or their right. And so they didn't want to prohibit a farm from doing any composting. They want to just prohibit from the production of compost from the food residuals or food processing residuals. I wanted to put that out there because I don't know if a member of Senate Natural will note this change and have a concern about it. But I just want, that is the only change. And I think it's a good, necessary change to address the reality of farming. But it might raise a question from members of Senate Natural.
Well, why don't I add Senator Bray to my call list, and better to make sure than to have him be surprised on the floor, I would think.
As long as you don't agree to let him take it and look at it, because we'll be home and getting our snow shovels out in the fall before he decides what, if it's good or not.
Might have another election between when he decides not.
Well, if somebody else wants to volunteer, but I'm happy to do it, and I am known as the enforcer in some circles, so it should be fine.
Well, we'll put our faith in you. But other than from that, any reason not to move this on anybody's parts?
I don't think so.
No, it's good.
So we'll move to concur with the House proposals of amendment, and I don't, Chris, did you have the first part of the bill or the second part?
What I think would make the most sense, I had the second part. I think Senator Polina, if I may offer this idea, Senator Polina should just say we support it. And then I'll get up and say something like the bulk of the change is actually this fee, and but because it's revenue neutral, or it covers costs, we're comfortable with it and the slight tweaks. I'll try to make it sound as unexotic as possible. And does that make sense? So basically, it would be Polina, but then I'll back him up with this fee piece.
Yeah, and keep it as simple as you can.
Yeah.
And if we get Ann's blessings and Chris's on the natural resources stuff, and that makes perfect sense. I don't know why we didn't catch that, but I'm glad they did. And so that, I think that's good, and we can get rid of that, and the guys can go to raising their chickens. And then the other thing, we had 420 in approach yesterday, and we didn't have a lot to do, but they wanted to use us some time, so they had Michael go through it word by word, section by section. And that dragged on pretty good, didn't it, Michael?
It wasn't so bad. They were asking questions. They got invested.
Oh yeah. It went pretty good. So do we have any other bills that the House has sent us that hasn't popped back up yet, Michael?
No, the House has sent you, no, they're gonna look at 420 and 434 at 10 o'clock. And 420, I didn't even do a side-by-side. I just had to give them the two new sections. And 434, I did a side-by-side, and it's, you as a committee went through and made some improvements to that bill, and I think they will see that.
Is that the
Yeah.
animal cruelty bill?
That's the Ag Innovation Board bill.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going to
for-
accept they're not going to change the raw milk bill at all? We
The
only
raw,
made
the
slight,
raw milk is done.
Done.
right?
Yeah, that went really well, and the only thing this morning, I got a note from one of your constituents, the guy that lives next to Vermont Compost.
Yeah.
He's not happy with our chicken bill.
Yeah, he hasn't been happy with the compost company for years.
But I think we have safeguards built into this new bill so that they can't build in city centers and all that stuff. So I'm going to just send him a note telling him he ought to look through the bill a little closer.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
there's a little update on our farm to school stuff. Senate Ed in another bill, recall, was going to put in the task force to figure out how to get to universal meals. And then they also look to include the language that tells AOE how to spend that 500,000 that you got into the budget. So they had me in yesterday just to talk about that language. I said, well, you've seen this, you've all voted for it in S100, blah, blah, blah. The budget's already got the money. And AOE came in and said, well, gosh, we'd really need an extra person to do this. And yeah. So I said, my God. And by the way, Rosie was on vacation this week, or she was out this week. So it was not her. Of course, recall that the language was hers. We worked a lot with her and made a lot of changes for her. Anyway, basically, the language had already said you could take 60 grand of the 500 for support or staff or whatever, and they were claiming it wasn't enough. So I don't know, they needed a full-on position. So I know Campion, God love him, is fighting hard. And I don't know, but you may hear about this in your afternoon committee. And frankly, I think we should pass it as we had it with the 60 grand, because they don't actually need a full-time person. They've also testified to that at certain times, but they're playing a little bit of games with us. I just want it to move, but you may hear about that in your afternoon committee, Mr. Chair.
well, plus we gave them, didn't we give them permission that they could use one of these people that they didn't have work for? Really kept them that they could keep busy. So we gave them permission to use one of these individuals.
Yeah, it takes from the vacancy pool. They also already have a limited service position, so I don't know why they couldn't tack it onto their task, but you know how it goes. And Campion and the crew were not backing down. They just also didn't want to have to fight on this. Like, it's so crazy. We're got millions flowing around, and then when we get to nickel and dime, this kind of thing, that's a great economic development for rural Vermont. But anyway, just a heads up. I don't know how it's going to sugar off, but people needed to know.
Well, I've never seen an agent say, well, no, I shouldn't say that, because they all none of them can do anything beyond what they're already doing unless you give them 10 more people. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's ag or transportation. I mean, I've never seen such a bunch of people that can't push stuff together and get work done. I don't know. Yeah, those bureaucrats wouldn't last in private business a month, and it's sad that they all have to have, well, I gotta have more help. Can't do this, I gotta have more help. I mean, it's unreal. But anyways, that's good,
Well,
Chris. That you,
Yeah, I would just say that these are the people that have scrambled in the last year and delivered universal meals all across the state. And I do think we should not overlook that. But in an ongoing way, it's what's frustrating to me is getting mixed messages from the higher up bureaucrats, a little different. But anyway, I'm confident it can be resolved, but just wanted to flag it for people.
yeah, and what about our, how did broadband go to help our rural areas in your other committee yesterday?
Pretty good. Voted it out 7-0. I'm sure it'll be one that we're watching and tweaking just a little bit here and there, but pretty good. Sets it up for a decent conference committee, I think, with the House. And, you know, it's a deep and technical level of expertise. And frankly, we did not have a lot of support from our state experts. But I think we've wrestled through and come up with a good bill.
Yeah. So,
Chris?
yeah, but
I was gonna
it-
say, oh, go ahead, Bobby.
well, it's it's the people that, you know, the line goes by their house and they still can't afford to hook up. Is
Yeah.
there anything in there to help that situation?
That's a tricky one because, you know, when we were building the highways, we weren't putting cars in people's driveways. This is in my mind, and I've been vehement about this, two different problems. You got to build the thing, and then you got to figure out how to subsidize. And if you say to the CUDs, you have to offer a cheap rate the way Comcast and Consolidated do, you have to recognize they can spread that around a few thousand customers. Comcast and Consolidated can spread it around hundreds of thousands, if not millions, around the country. So there's a real scale issue. And if it had been a profitable area for to develop in, then Comcast and Consolidated would have been there already. So we really wrestled with this, and we punted, frankly. There's a lot of people that would have had to spend millions and millions of dollars on that, and we're going, well, you know, we can only do it really is two different things. So
Yeah.
there is a federal subsidy going on for the rest of this year. There are the CUDs, as others will, like Comcast, you don't have to pay a big connection charge to get Comcast. If they go by your house, they're happy to give you the box and all that. Part of what, when you read about that in the paper and stuff, this is a sneaky thing. It's a group of people trying to promote this Elon Musk Starlink satellite thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you promote them and the state puts money into them, guess whose business they cut into?
Yeah.
They cut into the CUDs. And so you start to undermine the very people we're
Trying to help.
relying on to do this. And it's tricky because you want to give people broadband tomorrow. And if you subsidize and they get to cherry pick and sort of eat into what the CUD territory will be, then the CUDs aren't going to be viable and we'll just throw good money after bad. And so it's very complicated. And I wouldn't say that we nailed it. You know, it's a matter of opinion. And we basically erred on the side of protecting the CUDs, who we are counting on for the last mile. You know, when we did this with electricity, there weren't 14 companies all piling in. There was a co-op that we gave territory to, and they were a regulated monopoly, right? It's very, very different from what we're allowed even to do in broadband. So I think we sliced it right. We allowed the Franklin Telecoms. Unlike the House, we gave private businesses the ability under certain circumstances to take grants. And of course, the CUDs are not going to become ISPs. They're not going to actually string wire. They're contracting with people. So, some of the grumbling you hear is people saying, well, we don't want to have to go through the CUDs. And we're saying, well, too bad. You can get a contract with the CUDs and get a nice steady revenue source. That's what EC Fiber has done. That's, anyway, so that's some of the balance we've been trying to strike and working really hard to do it. Holy smokes, it was challenging.
Well, I like your analogy of, we had to build the interstate system, but we didn't put a car in every yard. Well, we can build these lines out, and then, we are buying people cars now to put in their yard, 50 years later. Just yesterday, we heard from transportation, all kinds of money. You can even get money to buy an electric car now, or an old, more efficient car in place of your old Cadillac. So maybe once we get the line strung, we can do something different to help those most in need to hook up.
Well, that's the goal for sure.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that we need to chat about this morning? If not, I think we'll call it a morning, and we'll hopefully get our bill done this morning, and 102, and a big end of a big discussion and a lot of hard work on a lot of people in the rural areas, and get these guys to composting our food waste and things. So if there isn't anything else, we'll